cooperation, of feeling connected together in a universe that allows people to play and define what that universe is. And you could see that being touched on in Curiosity, and we're currently doing this Kickstarter for Godus. And although I've said it's a reinvention of God game, really what it is for me, it's trying to define what we think of as multiplayer.
So this is a Kickstarter, it is still going on.
Kickstarter's still going on. I think we've gotten down to the last 7 days and we've got a hell of a long way to go.
Now, the question I have for you is, you kind of entered into this Kickstarter thing that
Yep.
I would say there was a lot of attention on it back in February of this year with Double Fine.
Yes, yeah.
Obsidian, many other studios have come on. You kind of got some backlash that, to be frank, I was a little surprised about, that you were kind of regarded as such a stalwart that you were kind of moving into an area that people perceived was for younger people other than you. And I'm curious how you handled that.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know whether in my back of my mind, I kind of thought this might happen. I think there's a couple of things that people think about me that is just not true. They think that I must be as rich as Mark Zuckerberg or something, that him and I own Europe or something ridiculous like that. Actually, I've seen hardly any royalties from any of the games I've done. They've been, the games that I've done have funded the studios that I've developed. I've sold companies off and I've sold the rights to those games off, so I don't receive any more royalties. So I'm not nearly as wealthy or as rich as people think. I'm an indie developer, and indie development needs money. It needs money to survive, it needs money to be creative, it needs money to be inventive. And one of the reasons going to Kickstarter is that you need support. Need monetary support. You can traditionally do that by going to a publisher. Nothing wrong with going to a publisher. But the other reason for doing Kickstarter was there was something I thought was getting a little kind of wrong about my persona, and that was this promises thing.
Yes.
Peter promises and he doesn't deliver. And Curiosity came out and it had bugs, which just was disastrous, because if it hadn't had those problems at the start, I think people would have turned around and said, well, this is, unexpected. But I thought to myself, well, how can I try and get over this stupid line I said back in 1999, I think it was, about an acorn and an oak tree, which was an insane thing, Adam. Why the world?
I have a very fond memory of questioning you about that about a year later,
yes,
in
that's
2000.
Right. And I thought, right, well, what a great thing to do. I can use Kickstarter to help with the funding, which you have to have an independent studio, and I can get 10,000 or so people who love the genre of game that I'm trying to reinvent to help develop the game. Because one of the problems that Curiosity showed is that if you don't test it, if you don't refine it around an audience that is going to be out there, things go wrong. The great thing about Kickstarter is you'd have a community of people that you could release early versions to, test it with them, refine it with them. They're the ones who are going to say, oi, Peter, you promised this and now it's not in there. I can refine all those and weed all those things out, so when we finally finish the game, it's tested right. It's been played for thousands and thousands of hours, which is the secret to making great games.
Especially multiplayer games.
Especially multiplayer games. It's got this loyal following of people who have invested in the project. That all seems an absolute win. But of course, our Kickstarter came out is probably the worst possible time of year. It came out on Thanksgiving, as you Americans were.
Yes, it is a consumer time where people are buying presents and people are more conscious of their wallets.
Yeah, it is very difficult. And of course there are some things where people think, Peter is, he's too well established to use Kickstarter. And if I was still part of Microsoft, I'd agree. But being a small independent and investing a lot of your own money in a studio, it's a very scary thing. And I hope there's this one dream that I've got, and I'm probably saying this is the worst thing to say in my Kickstarter game, but it's a dream and a passion ever since I've been doing well, ever since forever, really, but especially since the black and white days, there's got to be a gaming experience, Adam. There's got to be a gaming experience that casual people and core people can play together. There's got to be. And, okay, at the moment, there's some really nice experiences on mobile. I really enjoy them. But I feel like my gaming DMA is being dumbed down and beaten into a pulp, I just feel ashamed of it. And equally, there's some great experiences on the PC, but, asking my wife, girlfriend, partner, Bob, friend to play those is out of the question unless you've got 10 years of heritage in gaming. If we could think, right, how do we solve that problem? The way to solve that problem is allowing people to approach things in their way and get out of it what they want. So there's a really elegant solution in Godus, and that solution is this, is you've got a base. It's your base, we call it your home world. And that home world you can build up over hours or days or even weeks or months. And that gives you, the bigger and the more elaborate your home world is, the more power you have. And you take the little people from that home world and you invest it in your multiplayer stuff. And that means that the casual people probably will never make that investment.
They're just going to build
their huge sandcastle. But us core players will say, no, I'm going to take half my population from my home world and I'm going to gamble it. I'm going to bet it in multiplayer. And they say, that's interesting. I think that's interesting. It's simple. So you've got all the creativity in homeworld, and it's think about this homeworld like this, is that what we're doing is we're taking everything we've learned from Curiosity about tapping, about people being artistic, about different styles of play, and rather than putting it onto the side of a boring cube, we're stretching it across the canvas of a land. So you can do some amazing creative things on this landscape. You can nudge it and push it and pull it, you can sculpt it, and everything that you do has meaning to this little simulation that's there, and that enhances those little people. The more little people you have, the more belief you have, which means the more godly powers you can cast, which is great for multiplayer. So it all kind of works together. It's not just us saying, well, we've done Curiosity, that will move on and do something else. The whole point is to learn something from Curiosity, to pioneer the tech, and then apply that tech to a game.
So if the Kickstarter does not generate the money that you're aiming for, what is the next step? I mean, as someone who follows you for so long, obviously I'm very intrigued to see what this game is like.
So there's three things that go through my mind. And you've got to be honest with yourself. I think when you put yourself in front of the world, where you stick your head up above the parapet, which is what Kickstarter forces you to do, you've got to be honest. And if it doesn't work, Adam, then I've got to ask myself two questions. The first fundamental question is this: is this something that the world is interested in? Or is this just something which, just a very few number of people? Is the concept right? Is the idea of reinventing a God game, is the idea of involving thousands and thousands of people in a single game experience, is that right? And I think if the Kickstarter is way off, then that would have to be a no. If our Kickstarter is close, if it's within a few percentage points, then I think we would have to find another way of getting support to help finishing the game. And that may be a traditional publisher route. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It probably means it would be less open than I would otherwise want it to be. It would be less interesting for the world to see how this game evolves using all this technology, but that opportunity is there, and there are contingency plans in place for us to think about that and do that. So
with a few days left in the Kickstarter, where can people go to find out more and hopefully donate to it?
Well, here's the thing. If they go to Kickstarter and they type in Godus, that's GODUS, they can go and pledge. Just a few dollars would be brilliant, and all you have to do is pledge a few dollars and then you're involved in the creation of the game. If you've ever wondered how games are created, if you've ever wanted to be involved, if you have ideas that you want to see in a game, this is the project to do it in. And we are going to go and use all the technology of today's world with some mechanics that you haven't seen in a game for a very, very long time, and create something that the world hasn't yet seen.
And I think, as someone who's followed you, the systems and the complexity of trying to do a godlike game is one of the most fascinating and impressive feats of technological programming.
Because what people will be able to do is tweak around with the simulations, play around with that simulation. It's like being God yourself. And doing that as part of the development process is fascinating to see how it evolves. And really, we're about $200,000 short. We've got 7 days to make that $200,000 up, and that's very, very scary. So just $10. I know it's an incredibly difficult time of year, but just $10 would help enormously. I feel guilty here because there's lots of suffering people.
It worked for the President of the United States, so I think it's there for you too.
That's right.
Peter.
Yes, it probably would. Yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best of luck, and I cannot wait to talk to you again when it all works out. All right?
Thanks very much.